Jesus with people in heaven, the reigning king, the gates of eternal dawn. Heaven did not begin with sound, but with a feeling, soft, warm, and deeply familiar. Those arriving for the first time described it as a gentle awakening, like opening one's eyes from a long, restless sleep and realizing that true rest had only just begun. The radiant gates, shimmering with a light not bound by time or weather, stood as the entrance to a world untouched by decay. They did not tower to intimidate. Instead, they welcomed, open, alive, almost breathing with divine warmth. People stepped forward, some trembling with awe, others weeping, and some standing utterly speechless. Souls who had walked weary roads on earth now felt weight lift from them, the weight of pain, regret, confusion, and time itself. Everything heavy simply dissolved as if heaven absorbed it with compassion. Angels greeted them, not with trumpets or rehearsed ceremony, but with kind smiles that spoke a language beyond words. Every face reflected peace, yet every angel seemed uniquely designed to welcome the specific soul before them, almost like heaven shaped the encounter perfectly for each person. And then, as if heaven itself paused to listen, a familiar presence began to move among the new arrivals. Light shifted, the air deepened, a warmth filled the space like the sunrise spreading across an endless horizon. And from that radiance emerged Jesus, gentle, steady, profoundly real. He walked toward the people, not elevated on a throne or surrounded by guards, but as a friend stepping into a joyful reunion. His eyes held the depth of eternity and the kindness of someone who had been waiting for this moment since the beginning of time. When he reached the first group, he opened his arms, and instantly every fear vanished. "You have come home," he said, his voice carrying through heaven like music woven with truth. And with those words, eternity began. The embrace of the Savior. Jesus did not greet people from afar. He walked among them, embracing each soul fully, as if they were the only person in all of heaven. Every touch carried healing. Every word carried understanding. Those who had known him on earth now saw him with clarity unclouded by pain. Those who had only heard his name now encountered the one who had loved them long before they were born. A woman who had lived her final years battling loneliness found Jesus taking her hands and calling her by her childhood nickname, the one her mother used before life had hardened her. She wept, not out of sorrow, but because no one had spoken her name with such love in decades. A young man who had struggled with self-worth fell to his knees. Jesus knelt with him, lifting his face. "You were never forgotten," he said, "not for a moment." Elderly saints found themselves strengthened, walking with steps that no longer carried age. Children ran to Jesus with laughter that echoed across shining hills. Every soul, regardless of who they had been, felt perfectly understood. Jesus looked at each person as if he had lived every moment of their life with them, and in a profound way, he had. He remembered their prayers, their heartbreaks, their victories, their nights of silence. Nothing was hidden, nothing was wasted. Heaven's joy did not come only from the beauty of the realm, but from the one who walked within it. Jesus, the reigning king, who ruled not through authority alone, but through perfect love. The kingdom landscape. Heaven stretched far beyond any earthly imagination. It was not a floating cloudscape nor a place of endless sameness. It was alive, vibrant, structured, yet boundless. Rolling hills shone with soft golden light. Rivers sparkled like liquid crystal, flowing with peaceful sound. Trees carried colors that Earth had only glimpsed in sunsets and autumns. Mountains stood tall but gentle, not harsh or cold, but inviting, as if they had stories to tell. Flowers opened not merely with beauty, but with fragrance that stirred memories people never knew they had. Grass felt cool beneath feet that no longer tired. Heaven had cities too, majestic yet warm, filled with music that seemed to breathe. Streets glowed with soft radiance, and every dwelling felt tailor-made for the soul who lived there. There were gardens, orchards, quiet places for reflection, and open fields for celebration. Time did not pass here. Nothing rushed, nothing aged. People moved with purpose, but never pressure. Every breath felt like rest. And at the center of this magnificent realm stood the great throne of the king, a place not distant but central, where Jesus' presence emanated like the heartbeat of heaven. Yet despite his glory, he remained close to the people, walking with them, listening, laughing, teaching. He was king, yet friend, Lord, yet companion, eternal, yet effortlessly near. The gathering of nations. As more souls arrived, heaven blossomed with diversity, languages, cultures, traditions, each one celebrated rather than erased. People were not stripped of their identity, rather, their true identity shone brighter. Nations that had once been separated by oceans and centuries now stood together. Misunderstandings, prejudices, and divisions melted away, replaced by unity that felt natural, unforced. People recognized each other, not always by face, but by spirit. Jesus gathered them in a great open space, resembling a valley of light. Millions upon millions surrounded him, yet no one felt distant. His presence reached every soul equally. He spoke of earth, not to condemn it, but to show how even the smallest act of love had ripple effects that heaven celebrated. He showed children the impact of their innocence, elders the legacy of their resilience, and the unseen the beauty of their quiet faithfulness. For you were made in my image, Jesus said, and each of you reflected me in a way no one else ever could. Heaven erupted in praise, not forced, not commanded, but overflowing. Music rose from the people, from the angels, from the very air. It was not a performance, it was the language of joy. Every nation, every tongue, one family. The throne of majesty. The throne of Jesus was not distant as earthly thrones often are. It was a living center of heaven's light, an eternal symbol of authority based on love rather than fear. It radiated peace, not intimidation. Jesus sat upon it with the ease of someone who had nothing to prove and everything to give. Around him, angels moved with graceful purpose, not as guards, but joyful servants of the king. People approached the throne freely. There was no hierarchy, no status, no competition. Children climbed the steps with laughter, elders knelt with reverent wonder, and Jesus welcomed them all, one by one. From the throne, Jesus revealed mysteries, truths too heavy for earth, but perfectly clear in heaven. People understood, not with their minds alone, but with their spirits. They saw that the king's power was not in dominance, but in sacrifice, not in command, but in compassion. The cross had not been a moment of defeat, but the triumph that built heaven's very foundation. Joy among the people. Heaven was filled with joy, not the fragile joy earth often knew, but joy that had substance, permanence, and healing. Laughter echoed like music. Children played in open fields, their steps leaving trails of light. Friends reunited after decades or centuries apart, greeting each other with tears and celebration. Feasts unfolded, long tables set with abundance beyond comprehension. The food carried flavor that nourished not just the body, but the soul. Conversations flowed without misunderstanding. Stories were told with clarity and joy. No one competed, no one envied, no one felt inferior. Identity was secure, belonging was constant, love was unconditional. Jesus walked among the celebrations, joining conversations, laughing with his people, blessing children, and comforting any soul still healing from earthly wounds. Heaven did not erase memory, but redeemed it. Pain lost its sting, and memories found closure. People discovered talents they never knew they had: music, art, writing, crafting, building, exploring. Heaven expanded as creativity blossomed. Work was no longer toil, but expression. Joy became the atmosphere, and Jesus the source. Lessons from the King. In peaceful gatherings, Jesus taught his people, not because they lacked understanding, but because learning in heaven was a joy, not a task. He spoke of mysteries like the threads of time, the purpose of creation, and the divine story behind every soul. Your life on earth was not small, Jesus said. Even the quietest moments carried eternal purpose. People asked questions freely. No question was foolish. Jesus answered with clarity, patience, and wisdom that filled the heart with awe. He revealed how suffering,